Welcome to Lesson 5 in Unit 12, Exploring Earth. In this lesson, students will work to answer the question, how did early explorers use materials to help them survive? In this lesson, students will use tile pieces to make models and investigate different vessels, shelters, and tools explorers used. Students will figure out that a great variety of objects can be built up from small sets of pieces. This includes the tile pieces they use in the classroom and the building materials early explorer groups use to build different objects. Students make connections to the storyline by researching and modeling how early explorers used different transportation vessels to get across the water and ice on Earth, and the shelters and tools they used. There are several opportunities for ELA and social studies cross-curricular connections throughout the lesson. You can look for specific standard connections in the Unit 12 Teacher Guide. This lesson will take approximately 4 to 5 days to complete. For the Engage portion of the lesson, you'll begin by asking students questions about what they know about early explorer groups and how they think they got around ice and water. You'll also ask about the items explorers may have brought with them on expeditions and in what vessels they may have traveled. You'll show and discuss images of explorer vessels, shelters, and tools. You'll post and discuss the vessel vocabulary card and tell students that they'll start investigating their questions about explorers, vessels, tools, and shelters. For the Explore portion, you'll set up the Building Explorer Objects activity using the tiles from the MySci kit. Students will use the tiles to build examples of explorer vessels, shelters, and tools. They'll have to dismantle and reassemble the tiles to make each explorer item. You'll have students draw what they built in their Building Explorer Objects student journal page as they use the tiles to create their models. In the Explain portion of the lesson, students will engage in a class discussion. You'll invite students to gather and analyze their observations around the Building Explorer Objects activity. You'll use the provided questions to guide the discussion around how did early explorers use materials to help them survive? The goal of this class discussion is to come to a class consensus that many objects can be made from the same materials. You will use the discussion to create the Lesson 5 summary chart. From the discussion, students should understand that early explorers used the same materials to make many different objects to help them survive and explore. During the discussion, you'll read Going Places. Use the Read Aloud guide to ask students questions during the reading. For the Elaborate portion, you'll show students the explorer objects from earlier in the lesson. You'll point out the materials that the explorers used for each object and continue the discussion. For the Evaluate portion, you'll have students work independently using the Building Blocks Student Quick Check journal page to complete a summative assessment checkpoint. To support student sense-making across the unit, orient them back to the driving question board. Ask, did we answer any of the questions on our driving question board? If there are questions that have been answered, remove them from the driving question board and place them on the summary charts. Use this as an opportunity to build a class consensus model to answer the section driving question. How did the explorers explore the world? Be sure to see the noted opportunity to attend to equity. Have students use the self-check form to evaluate their own learning in this section. This is an instructional tool that can be used as a metacognitive practice for students to reflect on their learning, express their engagement or excitement levels for the topics they have learned so far, and reflect on their science identities and community. By the end of this lesson, students will have made observations of the vessels, shelters, and tools early explorers used to survive, and described how some of the pieces can be used to build different objects. In the next section, students will investigate how some early explorer groups used sound to communicate while on expeditions. For the optional extend, you can have students research different early explorer objects and then build 3D models of those objects. They can use cardboard or similar materials to build each model. For more information about this unit, visit mysitepartners.com.